Okay, so good morning, everyone. Once again, thank you for joining this session, which is funded by the European Union, and we hope it will be an engaging session. We ask that you participate, that you ask questions, ensure that this session is engaging and respectful. It's a gender session. Sometimes it becomes quite a sensitive one, but we know how to conduct ourselves, how to share our views respectfully, and we expect no less from those who are participating here today. So change gears, this is the third series. It's Change Gears for the acronym Gender Equality Advocacy and Rights Series. And today, of course, we are with Carla Moore, lecturer at UWI Mono, and she's going to take us through today's session, looking at how we can incorporate gender, equality advocacy, and human rights concerns as we develop our programs. So once again, thanks for coming.
I do want to do this 5-word community agreement. Can we quickly share 5 words that describe how we want to be treated here today? How you want me to treat you and how you're going to treat me?
Respect.
Respect, yes.
Human dignity.
Dignity, yes. Integrity, yes. What else? We have 3 so far. Anybody online want to recommend some words? How do we want to interact with each other in this space? Impactful. Impactful, yes. We want the time together to do something. Yes. So we have space for one more. We have respect, dignity, integrity, impactful, and how we communicate.
Along with communicate, you can just put forward slash and put connect.
Connect.
Why? A lot of us communicate when we're not connected.
Right.
Collaboration.
And we do have to connect for impact. And I hear collaboration. Okay. So for the time that we're here, we are going to communicate with each other with the intention to connect. We're going to be collaborative, respectful. We're going to act with integrity. We're going to respect people's dignity. And we're hoping that we can be impactful in what we do. Everybody all right with that? Fabulous. All right, on to the next one. Oh, so you're definitely not click. That's fine. That's fine. Every day you come and disrespect me, but it's fine. All right. So what are we gonna do? We're already back at time, so we know we have to make it up. So we're doing the pre-training survey, welcome and introductions. We're through that. We'll do a refresher on gender and human rights. Anybody here attended any of my gender sessions in the past? You have? No? So I did one with CDSS already, 2, one at the conference and another that was in a workshop style, right? All right, so I see that we have some no's. All right, so we're gonna do a refresher of some gender constructs because this is building on what we have done before, right? But it will be comprehensive. Then I'm going to ask you to do a gender evaluation of your project. So if there is something that you're working on in your community or you have an interest in working on, we're gonna use a forum for you to think through, is this inclusive? Will everybody be able to participate equally and benefit equally? We'll have a short break and then we look at how you can mainstream gender into your project. So I'm going to be talking to you about 4 steps and a brata that you can take to make sure that your project, your program, your policy, whatever you do is impactful. And it is respecting people's human rights and it's benefiting people of all genders. And then we're going to wrap up on the post-training survey, right? So we're ambitious, but we're going to achieve it. So the objectives: to refresh the knowledge of key concepts in gender and human rights, to assess the gender inclusiveness of your projects. All right, we'll start work. And to explore practical steps for mainstreaming gender in your project. You don't come here to talk to you and you left here with nothing. At the end of it, you should have an idea how to do something. So this now we start with our gender reflection. Right? So when we talk about sex and we talk about gender, a lot of times people think they're the same, but they're not, right? Because sex is biological. Sex is going to talk about physical characteristics, something whether you can measure. So the amount of testosterone in your body, the amount of estrogen in your body, whether you have ovaries, right? Whether you have breast, penis, vagina, them type of thing here. Your biological makeup don't generally change unless you do surgery. Right? Even if you do surgery, you cannot change the chromosome. The other XX or XY, right? Some people are XXY. Gender, people used to use it in the same way as sex. Language changes over time. That gender is a social construct that we use to differentiate between men and women and people who don't identify in any of those spaces. It's not based on science or biology. It can vary within cultures. It can vary. So, for instance, what it means to be a woman in your grandmother's generation, is that what it means to be a woman in your generation? Women are do the same things, or some things cannot change. Some things change, right? So when we talk about gender as social, that's what we mean. In your grandmother's era, a woman was expected to do certain things and she was forbidden from doing certain things. In a Huey era, some of the things that were forbidden, we can't do it now, right? Okay. So gender is also determined by social factors like culture, religion, history, what we expect of an Asian man and what we expect of an African man are two different men. Because even though we know that they're both male, we realize that what it means to be a man in a China and what it means to be a man in a Nigeria, two different, right? So gender is something that is social, it can change over time. It's also not binary. It's not just male and female, it also includes people on the transgender spectrum, people who are non-binary, people who are agender, right? One way that we can think about the difference between sex and gender, Lisa versus Lisa. Do we know the somebody in the black? Yes. Who is that? Lisa Hannah. Do we know the somebody with the gold hair? Lisa Hyper. All right. If Lisa Hyper get up tomorrow and start behave like Lisa Hannah, what people are going to say? She'll follow. She want me like her. What else? Lisa Hyper get up and start going like an uptown woman who is a politician and beauty queen. What people are going to say? She changed. Russia put on Russia wants so far. Right? If Lisa Hannah get up tomorrow and start going like Lisa Hyper, we don't expect that of her. What happened? Some people that say she mad out. All right. Okay. As far as we know, both of these people are female. Yeah. But we understand that there are different types of women.
The stereotype is the person.
Right. Well, we are stereotyping the person because our gender expectations have stereotypes inside of it. Yes. Stereotyping that. So we understand that Lisa is a woman from an inner city community. She's a part of the dancehall fraternity. How she behaves as a woman is different from how she behaves as a woman. And we understand it so clearly that if she start one like she will say what. And if she start one like she will say what. So that's the difference between sex and gender. Two people can have the same biology, but we expect them to behave differently in social systems, right? So gender is biological, sex is social. Sorry, sex is biological, gender is social, right? So although gender is culturally defined, a person's experience of their gender and their sexuality is something that is deeply personal, and I think this is the section that probably you were here for. Right? Let me see if I can get this to be small. So this is the gender-bread person. The gender-bread person helps us to think in more detail about issues related to sex and gender and sexuality. It helps us to see that it's not a binary and not just the two sides. You over here, you over there. So sometimes you have some things in the middle, and we need to like really deal with that. So let's start with the biological sex. This is the organs, the hormones, the chromosomes that's going to decide whether you are male or female or intersex, right? Anybody ever hear about Pastor Semenya? Yeah. South African runner, right? So Pastor Semenya run on everybody and pass everybody and people them say she tough, me think of one man. So now Pastor have to undergo all type of testing. The one when she has period, all them type of thing there. And what they find out is that cancer is intersex. What that means? This is the hormone range where you don't expect for a male. This is the hormone range where you don't expect for a female. Cancer somewhere in it. Right? Intersex. 1 in 100 people is intersex. Right? So in your lifetime, you meet more than 100 people, which means you probably met an intersex person. Or you might be intersex and don't know. Because when we intersex, people used to call it hermaphrodite. Yeah. When people think of intersex, then feel that oh, the person must have a penis and a vagina at the same time. It's not true. Right? Sometimes there's nothing on the body that you can observe, but it's the hormones. Right? So your biological sex, you have female on one side, male on one side, intersex is going to be in the middle. Then you have your gender identity. Your gender identity is how you understand yourself as a gendered person, right? So do I feel like I'm a woman? Do I feel like I'm a man? Do I feel like I'm somewhere in between, which would be genderqueer, right? You might have a person who, for instance, is female, assigned female, but for how them understand themselves, we know myself as a man, right? So that would be somebody who is trans. Now, the other thing that I want people to understand is this. Plenty of we are female, we identify as women, but we're not all that dignity, right? We're actually somewhere coming in here because we don't do everything that you traditionally expect from a woman. Right? Because traditionally you're supposed to watch and cook and clean and stay home and you nurture and re. Some of we out there around business, when we hear as justice at the peace, we don't know justice at the peace, that's something people typically think of women for. So a lot of us are women and we identify as women, but we're not all the way out of, we don't do everything what society expects. So we're kind of let someone like that. Right? I know that I can do things outside of what society has told women can do, some of them somewhere. Then you have your gender expression. These are the outside now. So this is how you demonstrate your gender based on traditional gender roles through how you act, dress, behave, and interact. So let me give you a scenario. You have two women, they're a good friend. They must see one another for about 5 years and then book up. How do they greet each other?
All that kids then.
All right. Man, them a friend. Man, no, them a friend. Them not see each other for 5 years. How they greet each other?
Yo, da, wah, wah.
Yo, da, wah, wah. Very good. Right? We now come with the word for physical contact. Me a touch and little and some of them just that something. Just the two thumb them so. Right? So even
Sometimes they thumb fist.
yes, and then both the fist, yes. So the way that we display our gender comes out in even simple things like how we greet somebody when they do sit. How women supposed to sit? We're supposed to cross at the ankle, lean to the side. How man supposed to sit down?
Sit like over there. Yeah.
Take up as much space as you wish to have. All of these things are a part of how we express our gender. Yes. And if you want to understand the societal norm, it's simple. Go to a primary school and say to the little boy them, all the little girl them go on, I immediately see them start go so. I said to the little girl them, how the little boy them go on and them start going so. Because they understand that this is how you express your gender. And then you have your sexual orientation, that is going to be who you are holistically attracted to, right? So you have a romantic interest in them, you have a sexual interest in them, you want to be with them. So you have heterosexual on one side, homosexual on the other side, and then in the middle you will have like bisexual who are attracted to two genders, pansexual, these are people who will be attracted to all genders, right? When it comes down to gender expression, you have feminine on one side, masculine on one side, and the androgynous in the middle. That's going to be somebody who has like a mix, right? So the thing so as you're thinking about how to mainstream gender into your projects, one of the things to remember is that you see if everything lines up in the way society thinks it should line up, people life generally look easier. So if you're female, you identify as a woman, you're feminine and you're heterosexual, like, okay. But you see, if you are female and you go masculine, Are you female and you identify as a man? Are you female and you're homosexual? That's different, right? Yes.
You know, just being the devil advocate here, because even though what you're saying, I'm deviating from it, but sometimes parents tend to want to choose which woman their son or never should talk to, or which man their daughter should talk to. So even though based on a woman, feminine, female, and heterosexual, families still want to make decisions who they should marry or who they will be with or not.
Yeah.
So they still have their challenges.
Yeah, they do. So the thing, and that's why I never said that life is perfect, because as a woman, there are challenges that you're gonna have just by virtue of being a woman, right? And that's why gender mainstreaming is so important for us to consider. And even that thing about who gets to decide who you marry, that's something that you have to consider when you're doing your gender analysis, right? In a community where a girl can choose who she ends up with, her life is very different from a community where her family makes that decision for her. Because even if the person is violent, even if she's not happy, she has to stay because it's not her choice, right? So those are the types of gender relationships that we have to be cognizant of when we're going into our community, right? Oh, you start flapping again, no problem, I'm unflappable. All right, so when we're talking about gender roles and gender norms, gender norms are unwritten rules that most people follow. A lot of us, nobody never writes it down and tell us how to be a man and how to be a woman. But it's communicated to us through our interactions with other people, right? So they're embedded in communities, they're embedded in systems, they're embedded in structures. When we say they're embedded in systems, I think putting like this, all boys school maybe now go after like home economics. They might go after something like woodwork. All girls school might offer something like home economics.
And they're calling for it now, you know.
The system is communicating to you, taking care of home, woman thing, learning to be man thing. And yes, gender expectations will change.
I must say, I am agree with you, because now in our alma mater, you understand, they're putting in things into place for home economics.
Yes.
What they want to add value to, because they realize that men are not into makeup, chef, hairstylist, so what you're doing now, you're saying, okay, whatever your heart desire, we're going to give it as a cupcake and air. So a little more from this, hard to be going into the high school, offering it as a course as level 1, certify them if they want to do the next level, they're able to go to because they realize that look here. And then better to be doctor. Allah,
or want to be.
And no job is menial.
So and that's a part of
no matter how good the guy is, and if he decided, okay, I want to become a makeup artist, I become a hairstylist, support him, because guess what? That can be his well. You make him go be a doctor, be a poor doctor.
Yeah, and that's a part of the move towards gender equality, right? It's opening up the types of vocations that are available to people, because what we've also seen is that women have gone into what we think of as traditionally male fields, but we haven't seen the same thing happening in the other direction.
The best mechanic I know right now, it's a woman from mobile reserve.
But it's also about preparing people to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
You need to know how to cook, you need to know how to clean a house regardless of your gender. You can't always expect that somebody is going to be there, right? So in society, gender roles and gender norms will dictate how people speak, act, dress, groom themselves, all of that, right? So these are the behaviors, the values, and the attitudes that society considers appropriate for you based on your gender. So traditionally, we know that men are seen as the providers and the protectors, and women are seen as the caretakers and the nurturers. The thing about this is not neutral. It's not a situation where we say, oh, you over here shall provide and protect, and me over here shall care and nurture, but we equal. We set up a hierarchy where the provide and protect come above the care and nurture, and then that creates inequality inside of the society, right? So generally, when we're thinking about jobs, what you're supposed to do around the house, attitude towards sex, you can separate them into what we think of as a man box and a woman box, right? Traditionally, what is a man job? What kind of job man supposed to do? Traditionally, construction, mechanic, electrician, right? What type of job woman to do?
Daycare, nursing,
seamstress,
secretary.
Women's jobs are a continuation of caring jobs, nurturing and care. Men's jobs are like more physical and productive, rigorous as well, right? So what about in the household? What type of chores man supposed to do or what type of chores woman to do? What are the man chores?
Provide, make sure everything provide a good job in, just put in.
So you make sure that it's up them in the house, right? So for some men, it's not pack up food, them have actual things that they do. If it's a man who is doing things in the house, what do?
As a,
It's the house
as
now.
a child, my father, he goes and do the work,
Yeah,
and every Sunday morning, he press our uniform.
press out everything.
Yes, and my mother working clothes.
Right.
You see, that was his job.
Yes. And so that is the culture of your household. Your father is the one referring. Some people will say, now my household is my family, the men are the ones that cook, right? But for most people, the expectation is, he might go take out the garbage. If anything broke, he might go fix it. If anything need to do outside of the house, be so. Inside of the house, yeah. So. All right. So we know. So we're talking about human rights and gender equality. Human rights and gender equality have a long and very loving relationship with one another. However, parts of the relationship can be toxic, right? Gender equality is actually entrenched in human rights, right? So when we're talking about human rights, what they are is rights that you have simply because you're human. You don't have to do nothing to earn them, nothing, right? It's not your government give them to you, you're born and you're there, you have the rights. So they're inherent to all of us, regardless of where we're born, with sex, with ethnic origin, religion, nothing, everything. So they range from the most fundamental rights, like you have the right to life. You have the right to move around freely. You have the right to health care, right? Then you start thinking about things like you have the rights to food, you have the rights to education, liberty, them type of thing there, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, them type of thing there. Human rights are for everybody. And when we're describing human rights, they're usually described as they're universal, everybody have them. Inalienable, can't give them away. Indivisible, you can't separate one from the other. So you can't say, well, now I'll give you 90% of the rights. You're suffice, satisfied. No, you're supposed to get everything, right? They're indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated because they all work together. It's a full package, right? For me, gender equality is where human rights and gender draw the language. This is where them come together and spend some time together. So gender equality refers to the equality between women and men, people of all genders, right? It refers to the equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of women and men and girls and boys. No. A lot of you have seen this. I'm bringing it back into the room because I want us to hold in our mind the difference between equality and equity. Equality says, we're going to give everybody the same thing. Everybody get one block. Lucky Lala never need the block. Shawty Cook Stick did need more than one, right? But if we say everything is equal, everybody get the same thing. You realize that not solve everybody's problem. Some people are going to still disadvantage and some people have too much advantage. When am I going to pitch over the place? Right? Equity. I give everybody what they need. You don't need none, so you don't give none. All right, you need one, so you take one and you need, so you get two. Equity, they call it substantive equality. Equity is actually the vehicle that is going to move us to equality. Because guess what? If we're starting from different places, we need different things to reach the same end goal. Right? Some people, then they say, oh, you have to carry everybody come yes, so. And when everybody come yes or no, they will say, all right, we can give the same thing. But even then, because if everybody come here, so and me walk and draw my foot, you can't give me the same thing as somebody who can walk. So, right? So we're practicing equity. And gender mainstreaming is a part of that because gender mainstreaming is where you figure out what does each group of people in my community need so they can fully participate, right? And in the third image is where we want to get to, which is you remove the barrier. What is the barrier defense? The piece of board them. When they make up the fence. If we did just put one chain link fence, everybody can look at what them level, right? So we want to remove all of them barrier there. All right, cool. So you determined to flat me and determined to not. Well, everything. Oh, it's because it's on that and not this. Got it. All right. So how are we doing with gender equality in the Caribbean? Well, we have some things. The International Development Bank says Latin America and the Caribbean is the world's most unequal region. Most unequal. The 10% of people who make the most money make about 12 times more than the 10% who make the least. Right? For developed countries, the ratio is actually more like 4. The richest ones are going to make 4 times, but the poorest make at 12 in that area, right? 1 in 5 citizens in Latin America or the Caribbean is poor. Between 1990 and 2014, we did see a reduction in inequality. However, the progress has stalled. So we need some advice on how to tackle this problem. Now, if we're talking about development, we're talking about moving our countries forward. One of the words you hear talk about a lot now is sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. In terms of our sustainable development, gender equality, the right vessel is number 5. We have to achieve it. And it stands on its own, but it is also linked to many of the others, right? So, but guys, we're not doing well, right? So remember, so we have the 2030 stop them and them say by 2030 we will fix up world problem them. Well, the people them say at the current rate that we are going, which one?
Yeah, that's what. Want to take a picture of it?
Yeah.
You go with them.
Yeah. All right. So at the current rate, it's going to take us 300 years to end child marriage.
What?
Yeah. Now, bear in mind, Iraq just passed legislation that lowered the age of marriage to 9.
What?
9. Yeah. They just lowered it to 9. Right? It's gonna take 286 years for us to close gaps in legal protection and remove laws that are discriminatory. And it's gonna take 140 years to achieve equal representation and leadership in the workplace. Right? When you look on it at this point, or for our countries, when you look at the parliament, usually it's about 30% of the parliament that's made up of women, 70% is still men. Right? 1 in 5 young women is married before her 18th birthday. Now we can look at the child marriage thing and we can say, oh, that's a big problem. But we also have to look at the fact that in Jamaica, 50% of young people are sexually active before they're 14.
That's true.
And for about half of them, it was not consensual. So they were sexually assaulted, right? So problems everywhere, and we need to figure out how to fix it. We are doing the work in our communities that can move us forward. Now we need to figure out how to make our work gender transformative, right? That's the goal. Jamaica have a whole heap of international and local commitment to gender equality. We're full of active. We have the Domestic Violence Act, Property Rights of Spouses, Maintenance Act, Sexual Offensive Bill, Child Pornography Prevention Bill, the thing with the 7 boys and the 1 schoolgirl, the sexually assaulted 1 schoolgirl. This was a significant to the charges that they were able to bring up towards them, right? Because she's under 16. So they can charge them with child pornography for recording it and for having it on their phone and distributing it, right? We have the Charter of Rights, which is going to tell you, protected grounds for discrimination. And we have the Sexual Harassment Act, because baby, this just come up in 2021, right? It's a baby, yes, just boss. So now let's change gears. See what I did here, guys? Yeah. Gender evaluation. You should see a gender evaluation docket. For those of you who are online, this would have been emailed to you. Please look for the document that looks like this, right?
It's in the chat.
It was sent in the chat as well. Okay, thank you. It was also sent in the chat. It's a gender mainstreaming checklist for your project.
I'm gonna send it again. No.
And Marie's gonna send it one more time in the chat so you can just open it and have a look. If you want to fill it out, if not, you can look at the presentation that I'm doing and kind of just make a note to yourself as you go along. All right? So, does everybody have a project in mind that you're gonna be focusing on as you think about this? Does everybody have something that they want to work on in their community, with their church group, something that they want to achieve?
For us,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking the other day, because we come across so many issues where teenagers identifying their sexuality,
Mhm.
parents and guardians
Mm-hmm.
is not taking this life day and out of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
We are putting them out of the mercy of God. And we
Yes.
say that when we get them to in place and
Yes.
have safety for them,
Yeah.
but they will know that listen, you're going to focus on your education, you're going to be a God and ensure your safety and everything and ensure that what they're needing out here, they don't need it here.
Mhm.
And when they come of age, then this is what we can do from here in the university, so can I make men and women and all, whichever gender based they choose to actually call or identify with their pronoun.
Yeah.
It's something an issue because we who have gone through our stigma, discrimination, marginalization, and we do survive. I mean, it's like it throws to the wall, we come back in the past.
Yes.
You understand? So at the same time, we say it's a major issue because we are talking about the inner city and this where parents and parents adore gunmen, rapists, you understand, pedophilia. But when they come on to homosexual or lesbian or bisexual, it's just a different name.
Yeah.
It's what different that we can do, help them, tell them to understand them and then come down of it.
So I don't know if you have it written down anywhere. So it sounds like what you want to create is a safe house.
Yes.
For young people who have been excluded or kicked out of their home,
Right.
displaced from home because of their sexuality. The reason I give you the paper is sometimes when you have it just written down, just a one sentence, it gives something to grab onto when you're at work. Right? Okay, do you have anything that you are interested in? Anything you want to advocate for? Any change that you want to see in your community? Okay.
Thank you.
Take your time. For folks online, this is for you as well.
What I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
Is to probably create, photographic, board
Mm-hmm.
to showcase different types of gender
Mm-hmm.
and person also understand the different types of gender, and also relate to
Mm-hmm.
the different types of gender without any form of thinking of the same.
Yeah.
You know, and what I was is more like yeah,
Yeah.
tolerate
Yeah.
and adjust.
Right. Adapt, tolerate, and adjust. So it sounds like you wanted it some type of a toolkit
Yeah.
or a photo-based guidebook for how to engage with gender diverse people.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Fabulous. What do you think? Anything you want to do in your community?
Yes, right. I've heard people speaking about using the tools to be boys,
Yes.
young boys,
Yes.
mentors.
Yes.
Going on the focus.
Yeah.
Some of the tools and
Yeah.
towards the mentors.
Yeah. So trying to intervene, get them back in the school. Yeah, and then for them to keep them there.
Sure.
Okay, all right. And I know what, because we're going to be going through it. These are the things that we need to think about.
My thing now is, in my community,
Yes.
you have to go through, the little lane,
Yeah.
where my scheme where I'm
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
And you have sometimes early in the morning with that little boys among the road, and they're not
Yeah.
going to school, go the things should be in school, they're not in school.
Yes.
And sometimes they're more there,
Yeah, they want people.
Yes, and I always wanted to, have a group meeting with them, tell them the importance of education, because doing that, later on, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
You see, and nowadays, if you don't have a skill,
Exactly.
no one is going to look at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You see, you might not have the brain, but your hand,
Yeah.
you learn how to become a mechanic, You know, you can become a Tyler.
Yeah.
You know, because some parents, they push their children to do this kind of job and that kind of job when the child only knows to use his hand. You see,
Yeah.
nowadays, a radio is broken down in the home. The son
Yeah.
is the one who know how to attach the
Yeah.
wire to that wire so that it can, you know,
Yeah.
start working again.
Yeah.
You see.
So here's one thing that I wanted to start with take off the only. When you say somebody only know how to use them hand, already you're downgrade. Remember how we said only have $5? So pick it up and they say they're gifted with their
Yes.
hands. They're brilliant with their hands.
I'm
Right.
glad to what you say.
Yeah.
Because this morning we said and wrapped it up with the cards.
Yes.
They only want hard NST students.
You know who is
I know when I
the,
say
you know who is the
university.
group of millionaires in the US? The one that when you fix your condition. Trade men, they are the new upcoming group of millionaires because they charge them price. You can't get it from, you're gonna need a plumber. You're gonna need a plumber, you can't get it from it. You can't get it from needing a man when you want to fix store.
When we try to answer, don't they?
No, and me I tell you now.
Ah,
If that- Don't send them to me because Taylor can't start make money. Taylor cannot stop making money, I tell you that much. Right? Okay, so we have an idea of what we want to do. We know the issues with gender equality, gender inequality. And if we're not intentional with how we do our projects, we can increase gender inequality. If we are intentional, we can actually make a big difference on the ground. Your project would help to challenge some of the change some of the gender norms and stereotypes that aren't helpful, but we just need to know how to finish the thing, right? So this document, which you can keep and use, it helps you it takes you through different categories, different aspects of your project, and it allows you to check how you're dealing with gender inside of it. So the project analysis. Does your project explicitly address a gender issue? If so, please describe it. If not, provide explanation. So for instance, you can say, yes, it's addressing a gender issue because specifically it's talking to boys who are, truant. It's talking to queer people, right? Who are being kicked out. It's talking to the young man them who they're not involved, they're not in a school. Right? So you can say, yes, then you explain. Does the background or the context of the project, when you're thinking about framing up the project, so you say, all right, I'm gonna write a little one page, tell people about the project. Does that examine the different situations, roles, needs, and challenges that are faced by women and men? So when you're explaining the project, what is happening in the community and what you're planning to do to fix it, are you considering things like education is not something that is considered masculine? The boy, them deliberately are going to fail the English exam because they say English is positive. So like that you want to make note of, right? Because guess what? If you don't make note of that and you are telling the boy them go to school, and going to school don't match with their masculinity, they're probably not going to go.
The other thing.
Because
When a boy speaks English properly, they tend to think that.
They're gay.
yeah, because I go to stigma in primary, in
Yeah.
high school because always grammar that I got the T and everything, and at the same time, I suffer, but at the same time, I said, no. I'm very confrontational, I'm going to say that this is why I was at the same time, I made myself adjust that. When I'm in my inner city,
Right,
you get the side is a part of me, but when I'm in a certain environment, it's like I switch.
right. And some boys can do that switch. And some boys are also not confrontational. And they will tell you that, you see where me come from? You see, if you come and talk too much English, it end up in a danger. Like the rest of you, them, want doing something.
Yeah.
So for his safety, he not do that. So for you now, for the boys who are not going to school, and you want to get them back into school, one thing you have to consider is that
And it's also.
school don't match with their masculinity. So how can we overcome that? You get what I'm saying? So when you're analyzing the situation, things like that we need to consider. Yeah. All right. So we can also look at how women and men, yes. You're going
Yes,
to look at
questions.
how, where?
Online.
Oh, I can't see, you know, you can tell me.
Yes, I tell you.
Who has a question online? Let me
Oh, no.
see.
It's just a thumbs up for the
Okay,
thing we shared.
all right then. So will women and men be differently affected by the project in terms of their rights, their needs, their roles, and their opportunities? So for instance, one of the things that we know is that when boys are not engaged, the community will usually realize faster because they're at a loose end in the public space. When girls are not engaged, it's easy to miss because they're not doing nothing but they're in the yard. So if we do a project to try to get young people in school, we're focusing on the boys because we know that there's a need. If we don't do a gender analysis, there might be a whole group of girls out there not going to school. But because we don't see them, we don't do anything for them. So when we're understanding the community, we can look at it and say, yeah, we know that there are boys out there who are not doing anything. So they will be positively impacted. But what about the women and girls who are around them? Are there girls who will be left behind because the project came in specifically for the boys and did not consider them? Right? Does the project build on or consider any human rights or gender equality instruments, commitments, policies, assessments, all of them type of things? So we talk about like the laws and the different things that Jamaica signed to and say, yes, we are going to do this. Does the project use
What I noticed though, because I work at the Spring Village Development Foundation where we're up in the foundation, a institution where there's different skills area, but when you speak of unattached youth, the first thing comes to mind. When it says youth, that sounds so feminine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you find most people.
Yes.
In agenda.
Yes.
You know, so, if they could just probably change
The narrative.
the narrative of it,
Yeah.
you know, because the youth sound like a boy, you know?
Yeah.
It's too masculine.
Yes. And so that is actually gender mainstream, right? So unattached youth, we already have a gender in our head.
Yeah.
We think about boy. So maybe we don't say unattached youth, we describe it differently. Young people who are out of school.
Right.
Because that's actually it, right? Them out of school are them unemployed. So we say, all right, cool. That's actually what we describe it. That's actually gender mainstream.
Yeah, the youth, you know, so my youth.
People think of boys.
When I call a girl my youth,
Yeah,
they will call
a boy, my youth.
my youth.
It's true.
So when they hear of unattached youth,
Yes.
project is going on over the ultras, that. Well, oh, a boy.
I want people to, yeah. And that's also about you knowing the culture that you're working on. Maybe in a different culture, youth could have mean boy and girl, but in a Jamaica, we say youth. We have that.
Even in the relationship, I'm hearing, like, the young man is saying to his girlfriend, brother.
Yeah, they do, and them say bro. In the relationship. Yeah, there's an increase, young men will use masculine terms to refer to everybody, including their partner. Yeah, they must say brother, they must say bro and all of them. Yeah. Yeah. But even though that might happen inside of their relationships, the girls still don't think of themselves as youth. Like my boyfriend may be like, bro, are you alright? But I don't think of myself as a youth. So when something says for unattached youth, we still now right? And then also when we think about unattached, we have an idea when come to men when we say unattached youth, you know, they're out in the community, they're not doing nothing, they just about from day to day. But you don't necessarily see the girls doing that. So again, we have to like understand the image that comes to our mind. And as we get into it, you'll see, that's why it's important you talk to your stakeholders. So they can tell you This is how we view a thing. This is what is actually happening here. You're not supposed to design projects for anybody without their input. Right? Nothing for us without us. Right?
But I just to understand, because
Yeah.
my place, they are doing project and it says an attack.
Yes. Yeah.
It's something that they tend to use a lot.
Yeah. Because it's the term that is used in a particular phase. But if we recognize there's a shortfall, then we have to respond to it. Yeah. Right? Does the project approach specify how it will address the gender issues identified in the analysis? Will the project collect, and I'll move through quickly because you'll get into this in some more detail. Will the project collect and use disaggregated data and qualitative information to analyze and track the gender issues it addresses? And the very basic thing, if you're going into a community to talk to people and you're collecting information, you need to make note of the people, them gender. So then you can say, this is what the men said, this is what the women said. You need to make note of age. This is what the older people said, this is what the younger people said. If you're doing across parishes, hello, this is what the people from the rural background said, this is what the people from the urban background said. Education level, because then now you can start spot the trend.
Right.
We're in the same community, but I find that the men in the community experience this, the women experience that. We find that the older people experience this, the youth them have a completely different experience, right? So our outcomes and activities designed to meet the different needs and priorities of women and men. You can go in and you can say, oh, we want to do a safe house for young people, right? And you go in the community and you tell them about the safe house and you say to them, what are you most interested in? Like, what about this do you think will benefit you the most? And the boys might say to you, I want a space where we can rest off while we figure out how to get a job. And the girls might say, we want a space where we can rest off and go to school. So for one set of people, this is a place that allows me to find immediate employment. This is a space that allows me to go after education. It's at the same safe house, but at two different meanings. They have a time to the safe house, right? So when you talk to people, what are people's needs and people's priorities? We talk about them type of something there, right? Does the results framework include gender responsive indicators, targets, and a baseline to monitor gender equality results? Ideally, if you're going into a project, we're not going in blind. We want to know what is there. I have gone through and I realized that across these schools, there are 150 boys that are fluent. You know that, so that 3 months in, you can say, well, it's down to 100. Project impact is 50 boys are now back in school. You need numbers, so you can tell what you're doing well, right? But then you probably want to go deeper than that, because they might come school, but they not do nothing. So they're back in school and their grade has moved from a D, then they are C+. These types of things, right? Have you allocated resources for the gender activity? Because when we talk about gender mainstreaming, is a mean thing, it's a real thing, money. You have to go put the money towards it. You have to go put the your budget towards it if you're serious about it, right? Which is why you do the gender mainstreaming through the lifespan of the project. You know, run it, and then you say, oh, gender budget don't spend out already, you know, we're done by bread and bully bean. We're done. Buy a phone card. We need money towards it, right? And yes, we understand that that can create a challenge, right? Okay, Miss April, let's tell them to take the pretest. Do we have women and gender focused groups or gender units consulted that are included in the project? Sometimes you don't have to start from scratch. There are people in our community already and know the community. Research that upon the community already. One of the places that have enough research, PIOJ, Planning Institute of Jamaica, JC, right? Exactly, because they go into the communities, they know the communities. Even if they don't have something written down, they can usually say, talk to that person there, talk to that person there. So you don't have to go in and reinvent the wheel, right? Does the project ensure that both women and men can provide inputs? This is very important. Are we giving a space for people to provide input and to be able to access and participate in the project activities? So for instance, all right, we want to do some gender-based violence workshop in the community, and we want the women to come. But we put the workshop at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and no women coming. Why the women not coming? They're not come out for work yet, yes. So why them a pick up picnic at that time, right? So you say, okay, I put the workshop in the evening. The workshop is now at 6 o'clock in the evening, but I realize that you have one set of women who not coming, right? Why? Because them have picnic. I never give them no childcare. For them to come to the workshop, somebody has to go watch them baby. So if you're not providing for that, they're not gonna make the same input as other people, right? You have to think about your personnel. Do your manager or the key personnel have gender expertise or knowledge? If they don't have it, how can they get it, or who can we bring on to provide it? Does the project intend to recruit a gender advisor, right? Will the project staff be sensitized to gender? So sometimes you can find a free course to do online. You can come at CVSS training so you can get that gender knowledge. Are you exposing yourself to the information that you need? Do the project implementation arrangements for the gender equality? Can't keep present because we're waiting. Let me see what time. All right. All right. So if you have gone through that and you say, well, my numbers are not high, you know, I really feel like me, I'll do all the way 2 years. Don't worry, we have a solution. This is where we normally take a 5-minute break. Do you want a 5-minute break? Well, no, we're good. Anybody online want 5 minutes break? Are we good? People in the room here are okay.
Raise your hand.
If you want a break, just put in the chat, say yes.
Roger Williams. Asking a question. Let me unmute him with you.
All right, cool. I see we have a question. All right, so I see somebody said no break.
Roger Williams. Oh, he's calling me.
Roger Williams, I see you have a question.
Moving along. Put on it.
All right, cool. Question has been canceled. All right, so let's talk about how we can mainstream gender into our projects. So gender mainstreaming is the process of considering the needs and interests of both men and women when making plans and policies so that men and women are treated equally. Now, here is one safeguard that I've tried to put in for this training. We have given you a 9-page document that takes you through the process of gender mainstreaming. So if you got through this session, beg you one day somebody can have to wait.
No, I'm going to send it to them.
But yeah. So thank you. If you got through this session and you don't remember everything, or you feel confused, or you don't have a project at this time and you want the option of revisiting it, you got this document in your email, you can use it. It is going to take you step by step through the process of gender mainstreaming. That's why everybody has been given a copy of this document, right?
Just dropped in the chat. Just dropped in the chat as well.
Right. And the document has just dropped in the chat, right? So we're going to look at the 4 steps that you can take to do gender mainstreaming. But if you leave here with nothing else, I want you to leave with the awareness that gender is a significant factor in how people are able to access resources, in how people are able to participate, and it's a significant factor in how successful and impactful your project is going to be, right? So, UNIDA recommends a 4-part process in gender mainstreaming. 1, you do the gender analysis, which is you examine the gender context. 2, you collect gender-specific data that is relevant to your project. You analyze that data using a gender analysis matrix, and then you make practical recommendations to improve your project, and I'll take you through what that looks like, right? So the starting point is a gender analysis. So the gender analysis is going to allow you to do 4 main things. 1, to explore existing gender roles and relationships within the community. So in your communities, who usually makes the decisions in the household? Is it usually the man, the woman, or the two of them come together? Both. They usually take the decisions together. Okay?
They're both present.
When they're both present, do you find that you have a lot of households with two, like two person headed household or single?
Well, it depends on the community and the background and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it all depends.
So that's what I'm asking, your community, the community that you're from, male headed, female headed, or two people? Both. Okay. What about you in your communities? What are you seeing?
Oh, that's the mom and dad.
You say the mom and dad. Okay. Okay. For you, mom and dad, or like a female headed, or mostly female headed? Okay. All right. So things like this are what we need to know. What are the gender roles and the relationships in the community? What type of relationships are the men and women having in the community? What do those relationships look like? Let's talk about intimate partners. What do those relationships usually look like?
Okay, I noticed my neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
he's always telling the wife, ask her wife.
Right.
But you give the responsibility out of the way.
So he defers to her on the one hand, but on the other hand, she has to carry the mental load to make all of the decision then. Right.
So he's a provider.
Yeah.
But he's always saying, ask my wife.
Right. So he provide and then she make all of the other decisions. Right. So on the one hand, it's useful because it means she has a say. On the other hand, what it can also mean is that a lot of it falls back on her. She has to figure it out on her own. Right? So you can look at how gender relationships will impact your project. So for instance, if you have you're doing a truancy project for boys and it's mostly female-headed households, do you think the fact that it's a female-headed household is affecting the truancy, or you don't think that plays a role?
Could play a role.
Could play a role. What do you think what might be the impact?
Because not having a dad or a male figure in the home to guide them,
Mm-hmm.
then they will just gravitate towards the mom.
Right.
Doing the thing.
Yeah.
But if they have a male figure there to show them that school and education is important,
Yes.
because most times the dad has a stronger voice than
Right.
the child in present male.
Yeah.
They tend to fear the dad. So the dad, they need to go to school.
Right.
They go,
Yeah.
mom, you're supposed to go to school, you know. The
So,
mom-
but some of the mothers are very strong with them, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I think you've actually hit upon something, which is you added a mentorship aspect, because it's possible that because they don't have the representation, they don't see the examples of the men achieving things in that way because the dads are absent. Yes.
I was just about that. What's the name again? I'm sorry. Right. So you, based on your opinion there, is it that you're saying that the role of the male or the father in the household is what will give that structure to say based on sternness or how he goes about holding his child in a verbal tone is what will promote? Not necessarily schooling, but the guidance. The guidance from the dad. So that the figure is needed in the home to do that? Yes, that's right. I think. Because if the dad shows the child, especially if the dad did achieve.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't achieve because I didn't do or achieve. Right. Then the child will realize that hey, this is important. You know, this child don't have a view on his own experience. The guy can say this is the way they're supposed to go there.
Yeah, like positive representation.
Right.
Yeah. Positive representation. Okay. So I hope so. The things that I'm saying, are they like making connections for you? Like no, because you see me love my job, you know. So me come back from chat. But me also want things to change.
Yeah, right.
Because Jamaica can't keep just go down. So, all right. So now we have to assess the different needs, capacities, and contributions of women, men, boys, and girls. We love that part because automatically you're telling us you have to think each. You have to think age, you have to separate it out, right? What do people need? What are they capable of doing? What can they contribute? One of the questions that I love to ask people when I go into the communities, especially with high levels of employment, I say, what do you have that could create employment for you? No. What do you have that could turn an income for you? Because most times people have an idea, well, we can kind of look here. I have an idea how to do nail. Oh, my father did show me how to do carpentry. And sometimes actually getting them to say that gives you an idea. This is what we should introduce into the community, right?
And they have the answer,
Them
Yeah.
can't answer people questions for them.
I mean, they know what you want.
Because when you tell a person the answer to their question, they don't want to agree with it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Jamaicans are sometimes uncomfortable disagreeing with somebody who they think has power. So we go along with it. We don't agree with it, but we go along with it. Or we just stop home. Instead of saying to you, I disagree, we just stop showing up. And that's how you know that they disagree. Yes.
Sometimes I think is the nepotism or the other person come to it
Yes.
because they know that you are social educational background,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to want you and people against me.
Yes.
I'm going to indicate about black you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say they professionally compete to survive.
Yeah. And I mean, people are trying to make the best decisions that they can with what they have, but understanding our culture is also important. Right? So I always say that Jamaican for no is the number you are trying to reach is unavailable at this time. We're not telling you, we just stop and say for you. And then we breeze you out for 3 weeks, and they will come back and say, oh gosh, what did happen with that something the way you talk to me about? You mean the something you did to do? Right? And then understand how your project will be perceived by different local gender subgroups. This is something that we have to deal with when we're doing a project that's specific to one gender, the other gender might feel left out. Right? Or you try to empower the woman, the man left the man them. Or you try to empower the man left the woman them. This is something that we have to face head on, and we have to make provisions for it. All right. So some big questions. So say you're not funny now, you just want to do a quick and dirty gender analysis. Then 5 questions. Right? What is the context that you're going to be working in? Who does what? Who does what in the home? Who does what in the community? Who has what? Who have the money? Who own the land? Who like if you have car? Who have education? Right? Who decides? Who makes decisions? Who makes decisions in the home, in the family? When we have the community group them, right? And the community development committee them. Who sits on the committee? Man or woman, who head the committee? Who are votes? These things are important, right? And who benefits? Who benefits from opportunities that come into the community? Because most of our communities, this will not be the first project, it will not be the first program. It's not the first time somebody tries something. So we usually benefit. When somebody, one of the communities that I love to think about grant spending. It can be politically affiliated, yes. You can say people from this political party tend to benefit more. Or the benefit goes based on which party is in power. Grant spend is one of those communities people love call grant spending. Every project I write up for grant spend. Every project, right? So in that community, you can ask a question like that, who usually benefits from it? Because if you have one group that's consistently benefiting, there are others that are being left behind. Yes, right? So who benefits and how do they benefit? For my project that I'm gonna do, who is going to benefit and how will they benefit, right?
That it can be on screen or basically type of thing or.
Yes. That's why you do the gender analysis, so that you can identify the risks and you can mitigate them. Right? Yeah, we're getting ahead of it. We now make some, there's always something that's gonna blindside you, right? Them say I can run for 100 things, another 101 catch you. But with this, what we're trying to do is to ensure that we don't do any harm. And what we do is effective as can be, right? By mapping out the landscape. So the nitty-gritty of the gender analysis. Some questions that you can ask, all of these are taken from that paper. What are the traditional and current roles, responsibilities, and practice that women, men, girls, and boys are supposed to adhere to, particularly in the household? Remember that first question, who do what? Right, so this is it spelled out, right? If you look at your document, page, right, here. So this is it now. So we're creating the gender context worksheet, which is step 1. So you see right in here, so the question here, this is what we're working on right now, right? So I just grabbed some questions that I think I really want to have the full list in that document.
Okay.
So are there any restrictions placed upon people or groups within your community? So you're thinking about women, girls, LGBT people, people living with disabilities, elderly people. Are there any restrictions placed on elderly people in your communities? Or they can kind of do everything where everybody else do? Restriction, what are the restrictions for elderly people?
If it's something that's not to do with construct, let's say
The physical strength. So there are certain things them not have the physical strength to do. So certain project not gonna benefit them, right? In that way. What about for you?
Similar, they might not be able to do the walking.
Yeah, move. They can't move around as much, right? So if you are going into a community and you say, I want to get to know my stakeholders, we have to call everybody to come at the community center so we can meet them. The elderly people you might not meet. So you need to add on something to go to them because you know that they can't come out, right? If you are doing something and you say, we're providing all of the resources from the community center, people can come and they can pick up hygiene product, they can pick up book, whatever they want, the elderly people are going to be left out. So from you don't map it out and you say, they're restricted in another way there, you have to respond to it, right? Yeah, bring it to them. For young men, some of them don't like the idea, so they might receive things from the body. Not the body giving nothing. So for them, they will know that they need things, but if you ask them to walk in and pick it up, no one about the spotlight exactly. So it's how do we find a way to get them the things that they need without triggering that feeling that we don't want nobody give me nothing. No one about feel like no man are minding me. These are the types of things that we know, right? Can women participate equally in local and community level decision making? So when you're talking about if the community, first of all, does your community make decisions together? Yeah. Do women get to participate in that? Yeah. What about young people?
Yes,
They might get cut off.
yeah, because you have some of them, yeah, some of the adults, and some adults that I do that, they just like, when they see you're young and brilliant, they feel like, this is over.
Yeah. So they're certain. Yeah, right. So you get a block. So the decisions that are made usually match with the priorities of the adults, not the priorities of the young people. So already we see a gap, right? So you are going to the community and you want to get something done and you want it to be beneficial to the young people, we have to figure out a way to bring them to the table. We have to do a focus group with just them. How are representing?
People can be very, very opposing.
Yes.
Why they have some, when they see that they work with young people,
Yeah.
the other man to try to oppose this person, yeah, to work with young people.
Or they feel that the young person is disrespectful if they're speaking. So how can you create a space where the young people can speak from sometimes just among themselves, just you them talking to you. If they're not the one to talk to you, you find a young person and train them. We go have the conversation with them and then bring back the information to you. Because sometimes you have to look at it and say, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it.
Me, my mom said to me that because I'm very vocal,
Mhm.
but I speak to her very firm, but
Mhm.
other perspective.
Mhm.
I don't have a mother. I just her mother, you understand? And I'm
It would be a problem.
couldn't say anything and about at her age. So when she was 20 something, I'm a boxer.
Right,
Understand?
right.
So I say, you here couldn't do that, I'm gonna shake you.
Right. So it's about understanding the culture of the community and the power relations in the community. All right, I see a note that Dorrit has her hand up. Sorry, I am not seeing these hands up because of where the thing is on the screen. I'll put it here. Dorrit, do you still want to speak?
I don't know if she's unmuted.
All right. I wonder if I have to manually unmute.
No, they can't.
I don't know, or maybe Anne-Marie. Okay, Dorrit, I'm not hearing you. If there's anything, you can put your hand up or you can drop it in the chat, right? Okay, so other questions that we really have to take seriously, we have to ask things like, what do we know about people's literacy rates? Literacy rate for boys, literacy rate for girls, women, men, access to education. Are there any big differences where you might say, yes, the literacy is actually higher for the older people, but for the younger people, it's low. Or you might go in a community and you find the literacy rate is very high for the young people, but for the older people, it's low. So now, whatever you're doing, you have to make provision for people who have only took you can't go in with 1 million document going out to people, right? And guess what? You see, people feel like you're going to embarrass them, they're not coming in. You see, if me feel like you're going to carry me in a workshop and give me nothing where me can read, first thing, me not bother come. And you look at yourself, you just realize that young people are coming, but anybody past like 50, nah, come, yeah, because them know that they can't read, and you're never come embarrass them. So before you even come at the place and start handing out things to people, you know what you're going into, right?
And I think, this was what was being here was that girl is age they can't read.
Yeah, you're big and can't read. Yeah, never born out of my mother no to read. You gotta learn that, right? How do women and men generally earn an income? You see, this is one and can get uncomfortable to people now because some of the women them are sex themselves. Right?
That's what I'm really good for.
Sex themselves. And then we come in now and we don't know how to deal with this because they're sex themselves. They're making money. So when we're going into the community, we also have to understand our own biases, right? The bias I am carrying in here and how it can stand in the way of my work. In this community, 30% of the women are sex workers. That's how they're sending their children to school. That's how they pay JPS, that's how they and university. If I'm gonna be effective in this community, I have to part my bias. And if I can't part my bias, I have to go in a background role and make somebody who interact with the community be somebody who can manage their bias.
Because
Yeah? Exactly. You have to understand where you are, and it's very important that we're able to do this. I think for someone, and don't think, oh, me feel. It took you years to develop that bias. You're not gonna let it go overnight. And then some people will go, oh, but we want to, you know, like we want to do the work, and when we can't just let go after the thing if we do good at the community. It cannot be in front of you. What are you gonna do? You have to take time to repeat. Yes.
A young man graduated from EDSA with honors and everything. And I mean, when I see him come on so proud and say, look here, your mother, not a word, and the street that kind of thing.
Yes.
I mean, he kind of said that, like, look here, I respect the job that you did, but now you don't pay because of what you do.
It put me. Yeah.
You don't want to be the more big picture. Right?
Yeah. And it's important to balance it. So you can have a story like that, and then you can go in a community and everybody else around the lady are doing her. You know, everything exists at once.
So because at the end of the day, you have to do it because nobody not helping her.
She does what she have to do, right? So the next step is you're gonna collect gender specific data. So you have to know a community to work with a community. You have to know it. So some of the tools, this is also in the document. Some useful tools for collecting data that is relevant to gender roles and responsibilities. 2 tools I'm going to introduce you to. One, pattern which page is the on? Right, let's go. See, I look on it.
Page 5.
Page 5. So you have a needs analysis. I have a community mapping. Right? So the needs analysis, you ask the members of your community to identify why they need or desire different elements for your proposed project. So you lay out the project and you say, this is what we are going to do, these are the steps we want to take, these are the impact. And you let them tell you, yes, I need this because of this. We're not really business with that. We're very motivated by that, right? And then you rank it according to importance for each group. And that might look very different. So what they're the top for you and what they're the top for me might not be the same. And that's okay, right? At least you know where people's investments are. So you should end up with a list of different factors relevant to the outcome of your project. As me said, you want to come your safe house because you want that work. You want to go to safe house because you want what, right? This will help you see what elements of your project different groups consider most valuable. So that's what it needs. You don't analyze that. Then you do the community map. So this is where you let the community members map out with pencil and paper the processes related to your project. So what usually happens? So what is it that's going to happen? So it's the physical facilities where other participants in the process from the community can be found. So people tend to live right here, them tend to congregate right here. When they now do nothing, then tend to hang out right. Yeah, so if them a go get a little opportunity to get a little sex or something, or them a go sell it, then usually sell it right. Yeah, so I just saw them a buy weed, all of them type of thing, right? That lady when they right here, so always I give them you them good advice, so they generally flock to her. That lady run the restaurant here, she generally feed the people them even when them not have no money, they know what's happening after all. This allows community members to identify important areas or resources for them related to your project. It also allows you to identify disparities between subgroups. Well, over here, so I really want the man them go over there, say, you know, the girl them not really feel safe to walk over the sun. So most of the girls them generally go in at them yard, or if them a go something, them want this a particular route, yeah. This a school year, that school year, them have a whole heap of violence in there. So the youth them not really go there because the school not safe, but the girl them tend to go to the right? So you will tell you who controls the resources, who is responsible for the different resources, and it will help you see which elements of your project will affect these different stakeholder groups and also who you need to work with on the ground, right? So you need to identify and talk to your stakeholders. Who in the community, young people, old people, married people, single people, people living with disability. This particular community has a lot of people who are using drugs. So we need to think about what we need to do about that. Only for people who are unemployed, only for people who are Pentecostal Christians specifically, right? So who are the specific people who will be directly involved or affected by your project? Again, all of this is on the paper. What are their roles and responsibilities within the community related to what it is that you're planning to do? How will these things change during and after your project? So, all right, we want to buy them to stop the on the road there. But their mother accustomed to them out there. So every time she needs something, she can call them. Their mother accustomed to them out there. So she not to worry that nobody not go come harass her because before them can reach she, they have to pass her son. When you take him off of the road and send him to school, she's left without a layer of protection and not feel away. So what you're gonna do is probably go find a man put in the house to give her that same feeling of protection, right? So the change you're creating is good, but it can affect other people around. So we want to think about that. Will anybody suffer or feel worse off after your project? Right? Is your project challenging any existing gender norms in the community and in what way? Right? So you have to think about things like who would you talk to in your community? How you can make it safe for them to participate. Sometimes you struggle to engage men and boys. Some men and boys, they don't always want to go to a conference room and stuff like that. So we know say, all right, you have a sports match, you engage them after the sports match. You go to where they are already. You go up on the corner, go talk to them. They'll open up and talk to you more in their own space.
Yeah, and try not to move because of political
Yes.
influence on maybe gangs.
Yeah, they can feel unsafe if you move them, right? Who usually get left out? You can tell when the questions come from the form and when the questions are written by me. Who usually get left out of them something? And why? Who do we usually not talk to? You know, really talk to people them with disability.
Yes, right.
How we not understand language translator, most vulnerable groups, right? Why not? We'll move on, right? So why are they left out? How can we make sure that they don't get left out this time? What barriers might prevent a person from attending an interview or a focus group? Me have to care for people, me have to clean house, me have to go to work. Me have a sick parent at the house and I'm responsible for them. How can you respond to that? Right? And then, so collect data that is specific to different stakeholders because their experiences are unique. Again, when you are designing something, you better put everybody in a big room to talk one time. Because me not talk when you are talking. No one you hear what me have to say. So put me with the people that who is like me, and then the whole of we can talk as one. Right? Yes.
And because one of the things, you know, what people must understand, become all things to all men. You understand? You know the kind of person you're gonna go to. Please don't use vocabularies. So
Yeah.
please don't use protocol.
Because some people want vocabulary.
You know, Professor Moore for you.
Yeah, some people want the vocabulary. So you have to meet people. You have to talk to people in a way that is going to resonate and make you relate and you connect with them. But you're collecting the data that is specific. So you put people who have similar experiences together so they feel comfortable to speak. And a lot of times it will give you a little fact checking inside it. Because one person might come up and say, oh, X might always happen in the community, and the rest of people say, no, it don't always happen. Like it happens full time.
Yeah,
I think it happens always.
It's just like with us, right? Coming from the inner city, right? And when you're talking, I have some friends, and they're all talking medical. I'm like, yo, instead of them on face speed.
Right.
I mean, instead of them, I'm friend them.
Right.
And we have to talk to them blind to it, barrier to them.
So you have to know. Exactly. So.
How about them just plan? Well, this is back and
Exactly. So that's why you have to know your community, right?
You have to go down there then.
Right.
And
And
then
then sometimes too, if I may comment.
Yeah.
That some communities might not be educated, but they want to be.
They want to be involved.
They want to be involved and they don't want you to talk to them.
Like them dumps.
They're
Yes.
adults, correct?
Yes.
They want you to elevate them.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So I always say that, try to go as yourself. Like when you talk to young people and they're like, you ask them, how do you want older people to engage you? Them say, oh, no, just talk normal. Nobody come try to talk like we. We don't say, don't come up and say why free. We don't say no normal. Yeah, embarrass yourself, but you make me feel
It's
weird.
like some person nowadays, if they going up to give a speech,
Yeah.
it's a little talk, they have to go up with them tablets.
All protocols,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
So, all protocol, who did your protocol in here today? All protocol observed. No protocol can get if you observe. Right? Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Madam Chair, not dear. We're only up here and table in here. Makes sense. So it's like meet people where they are and be authentic in who you are. Nobody come try one like nobody. Right. And when we're very mindful, you're very mindful or cutesy. All them stuff there. Don't be you. And generally people can tell when you're being yourself. Like when you walk in, they never expect you to be exactly like them. What happens? You know what I'm with like, and it functions at all levels. Yeah.
And they want to feel like they belong to some school and,
Yeah.
people see them.
And then there's also when we think that a group is less intelligent, we don't take their concerns as seriously sometimes. So we already have a data in how we're listening to them because we come here to, rounds with you. Came here to have a focus group. You're having focus groups with everyone. You came here to have a focus group with me. Yes, I am fluent in patois. That doesn't mean that you have to come grounds with me. You can have a focus group. Come here, come create one bag. A little bit enough, man. Right? So, and then you're gonna analyze it using a gender analysis matrix. Full disclosure, these are the parts where make my brain go, mighty God, hallelujah. Well, we work it out, how we have sense. It can be do, it takes time. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to lie to you. This part of it takes time because this is where you are going to look at the different categories of analysis. And if you look on your form, it's there. And then you're going to look at the different stakeholders, right? So you can say the category of analysis might be something like labor, all right? Or actually, I added safety, that's all. And we can probably even add opportunity. So we are creating a project that is supposed to intervene in truancy, young people who are not involved in school, them type of thing here. So one stakeholder could be the parents of the young boys. For some of them, they might feel I will be increased, I'll have an increase in safety because my son now outside run up and down with bad company, nobody now come to me because they might look for him. But specifically, you might look at single mothers and they might say, actually, I'm going to feel less safe because my son is away from home and any man can come to me. For the boys themselves, we can think about status. Once this project runs, there might be an increase in status for them because now they're in a school and the community might look upon them in a way like, yes, schoolboy youth, but they might lose status with their peers. Because if it appear the bad man culture is the thing that is most important, their status might go down with their peers, right? You might say, okay, like access to resources. All right, so I'm gonna run the project. They have access to more resources now because I'm putting them in the school. I'm gonna do something to make sure that they have a mentor, so they have somebody who can guide them. I would probably, may I try and make sure say if I rent book them can rent all of them. So this is, you look at overall outcomes of your project. You look at each group of people in the community and you look at how things will change for them based on certain categories if your project runs and it is successful. And a lot of times what it can then tell you is who is going to benefit, how they're going to benefit, and who might not experience as much benefit. And then you can see how can you build out on that, right? To make sure so them can benefit too. So you're going to make practical recommendations. So what are the gender risks, right? Are there particular, is there a particular type of harm that might come to people from a specific gender group? Is there exclusion that might be created? Is there inequality that might increase, right? And then what are the strategies that we can use to manage those gender risks, right? So one thing, if we say I'm not youth, the girls might not come. Because when they hear youth, they think of boy. That's a gender risk. How do I mitigate that? Use different language, right? What's a gender risk? Boys don't think of school as masculine. So they might not want to come. So what is the mitigation? You have to find a way to link the school to the masculinity. Mentorship. Men who have gone through school, traditionally masculine men who have gone through school and doing well. We make sure that they are hearing from other men and not about women because they already associate school with women, right? What I want you to understand is you're already doing this. Like you're already doing gender analysis as a part of your planning. So I'm not asking you to do anything that you don't know how to do. What I'm asking you to do is to be intentional about ensuring that it is something you include at all levels of your work, right? And my few steps, I'm gonna need other brought up. Gender sensitive monitoring and evaluation. You see the form them where we not stop drop for your complete, where you answer the monitoring and evaluation. So we test you at the beginning and we test you at the end. You need that for your project so you can know if your project needs anything. And you need to be gender sensitive in that. So if you have the training and workshop, you have to have registration form where people put in them gender. If you have the focus group, you make sure say it's separated by gender. So when you have your outcomes or your focus group, them type of thing here. You have this is what the women said and this is what the men said. Yeah.
The other day, we went from the other side of the park.
Yeah.
We didn't know that the young man, would be so very bold in his statement. He said, I'm seeing single here, I'm seeing married and whatever. You understand? And I said, okay, I'm not single.
Yeah.
I'm a gay man.
Right.
And I'm out.
Yeah.
Where do I go?
Yeah. So then, so we know that the form needs to reflect that.
Other.
Yeah, other, or you can actually just add have a partner. Right? In long-term relationship, something like that, right? So this will, and here's the reason that you want to keep notes on whatever you're doing, and you want to monitor what you're doing. You want to keep notes so you can replicate it. And if it works well, so somebody else can replicate it. Keep the notes as you are doing the project, because you see, if you feel say, oh, at the end, we just have to write up everything, you forget things. Some little small things that were important, you forget them. Like, oh, we did actually have to go talk to all of the shopkeeper them in the community to get them to be part of the project. And that was very important. You forget that because that was just a small thing where you did do, because you figure it would have worked. You don't think of it as an official part of your project. Make notes on your project as you're doing the project, step by step by step by step. Get the baseline with the start, you know the numbers, you have an idea of what is happening. So at the end, you can go back and you say, this is the change as a result of the project. You can know if it was a waste of time or if it was not. Also, when you have that and you're applying for funding, then you say, we did a pilot of the project in the community. Here is the data, the outcomes of this project, and now I would like you to give me funding to do it in another community, to do it at a larger scale. Sometimes we have things that we do as passion projects, just because we love our community or we see a problem, but we have to think strategically about how that passion project can actually become like an official intervention with funding. And we have to treat our passion project like a real thing. So at the end of it, we have something to show for it that we can then hand forward. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. All right. So some of the questions that you can use for gender sensitive monitoring and evaluation. How will I know how many men and women participate in the program? How will I know if they had different experiences in the program, right? All right, so we need to design something to capture that. How will I know if they were equally able to access services, to contribute their talents and benefit from opportunities, right? Which means, okay, when we go on a workshop, I have to make a note of how much man come out, how much woman come, were the women more likely to speak, were the men more likely to speak, them type of thing there. How will I know if men's and women's needs were met equally in the program? So who was able to advance and who was not? How will I know if gender biases against men or against women affected their success in the program? How will I know what I need to change if I do the program again? This is very important. What have I learned from doing it the first time that will let me know what I need to do the second time? Right? And that is officially the end of my slide. And yeah, we did it. Yes. Yes, you do have evaluation. Yeah, we have a post-exam thing to do. But before we do it, do we have any questions? Anything I want to add? Well delivered. Well delivered. Okay, thank you.
Yes, my question is just that over the years,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have noticed that when it comes on to the term set and the church, they tend to have a frown. And I noticed that most of the church people, as it's like they go into a bubble as if like the reality of the world is not there. You understand? And then I remember time past, ministers tried to reach the church, want to sensitize with HIV, want to sensitize with sexual orientation, and they feel as if like they're in a heavenly place that okay, this doesn't come inside here. And the reality of it is that it does. And they need to face it and deal with it and see how it will go instead of putting people at backbench or stigmatizing people or casting people to say, okay, this is not of the Lord or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I always ask the question, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Because I see people that if Jesus was here,
Yeah.
then in his time, we would have crucified him, would have minced him. Because the crowd that he would move with is not the crowd we wanted to move with, just like the Pharisees and Sadducees. You understand? So the question is, look beyond the fault of the person, love and help them, because if you do not do that, you're not going to reach anywhere with them. Because when you have them as an outcast, where they're going to go? They're going to go further.
Yeah.
And wherever accept them or show them love, that's where they're going to stay.
Yeah.
How can you get them back?
Yeah. So for you, then it's important that if we're going to be doing the work, that we're thinking about ourselves and what we carry to it, so that we don't exclude anybody or make anybody feel left out and less valuable. And yeah, that's absolutely important. And if you look at if something like this, like how will I know if biases affected the success in the program? That's also something that we can ask, right? Because we don't just have biases on people based on gender, but they show up in how we interact with them. They show up in who we even reach out to participate in the program. So yeah, absolutely. If we're doing community work, you have to do self-work.
Yeah.
You have to do self-work if you do community work. Or you will diminish or decrease how effective you can be in your role. Yeah. I think it's not easy.
I know because it's basically the holistic view, how you would view persons of different sexual or
Yeah.
sign,
Yeah.
know, and we as Christians, we're Pentecostals,
Yeah.
we try to view it in a because there's a lot of things to it, which for me, I did a research just to understand
Yeah.
if it's acceptable, but it's not my job
Yeah.
to say if it's acceptable
Yeah.
or to judge.
Yeah.
But there are parts in the Bible that will say, it is not acceptable. If you and them are friends, you're not a friend of God.
Right.
That's what part would say. And
Yeah.
part would say, they would say, I love Jonathan as I love a woman.
Yeah.
You know, they will use that to justify that something was going on
Yeah.
with Jonathan and David, right? And then they would speak of the
Yeah.
and they would say, oh, Christ accepted that.
Yeah.
But when they go further, it will say in New Testament, it will say they are not accepted in the New Jerusalem. So it's not basically for me to judge or me. This is what's going to happen. People need to change, and if they're supposed to be changed, then they will have to change. Not really my job. Say, okay, you need to make it stop. Right, and then as a Pentecostal, you know, we would say these things is basically not of God, and I think what Satan is trying to do is to disrupt God's original plan, what he have for the human race, because if you should put two men on the island and two women on a separate island, the race will extinct. We wouldn't have a human race, right? But if you put a male and a female, then you have the race continue. Right. So these are the things that we have to be mindful of. I said we need to change ourselves and always think about this person as adapt, tolerate, and adjust. Yeah, and then we deal with it tactfully because we're not going to say, well, that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah. So there's also one of the things that I always encourage people to think about is that not everybody's Christian. So if a person isn't coming from a Christian perspective, then we can't expect them to go to follow Christian doctrine. And then the other thing is that I think even within Christianity, there's so much diversity in how, right? How a Catholic approaches it is very different from how a Pentecostal approaches it. And it's also based on the same text. So if even within Christianity, we can have so many different interpretations and applications of the same text, then we can understand that you might have people who are looking at it, the same book, completely different from you. For me, I'm an advocate as well. And so I do encourage people and support people to make changes that they think are useful to them. And sometimes I'll push them even beyond that because sometimes we need it. But for me, my philosophy is all of us have to get through life. And what would truly feel problematic for me is if I contributed to somebody having a life that was worse. That's the thing that I don't want for myself. And for me, that transcends religion, it transcends everything else. Everybody deserves to have just like a human experience with dignity and opportunity. And I don't want to be the person that denies that.
I would like to share something where, my friend here has an experience where my aunt, and trust me, I always say that, I hope she die 1,000 deaths because, one of my cousins, came out as gay and everything, and because of her religious belief being a Pentecostal, she was rigid against him, turned the family against him, push him out to the community to make them kill him and everything, and he took the heart and just kill himself. And you know what, because I'm very confrontation. And here this past man come reject yourself and ask them, say, how dare you? Are you God? Why you putting him in hell? You understand? Who is the cause of it? He said that woman, he drive him to that. Pick at her, leave him alone. You don't know him, don't speak about him. You understand? But listen now, I said, don't care. You understand? So at the end of the day, I just have to run and even on her diet.
And I think that's one of the more challenging things to accept is that we will harm each other and we always think that a person must even at the last minute change their mind about what they did. Sometimes they don't. Because they feel justified in it, and they feel correct in it. And that's also an opportunity for me to learn because sometimes there are the things that I feel so justified in. And I also have to learn that just because it feels 100% correct to me, don't mean it is 100% correct for everyone.
My take on that is that, sometimes you don't really agree with what they are doing. But just so when you show them the love, you have to love them, because if you drive them away, some commit suicide, some end up with one road and all the things there. You have to, I have one grandchild, and his mother, we were talking the other day, and he has a friend, he's 16 years of age, and he has a friend, and he went home and he told his mother that the friend is kind of, funny. Yeah. And his mother told him that he's not to, withdraw from him. Talk to him, talk to him because a time will come when he will withdraw from that, situation that he's in. Because what happened now, his mother used to dress him up like a little girl, cutting hair and, put all them little thing on him. So therefore, no, he just come up that way. As the only child and he's spoiled him, you see. So my grandson now, when the others then, withdraw from him, like his friends at school, my grandson, take him as a friend and talk to him, and as continue my girlfriend. So, him and the schoolmate and the girlfriend, will go out, and to the movies, I think, because my grandsons, they might try to kind of, let him know that everybody's not the same. You see, at one stage now, my son now, who is his father, was saying that he don't want him, renowned, this and that, and what have you. But the mother, she's a teacher, so she thinks different. And I got to understand that, it's like, it takes time and move away. It not move away fully. But it's taking him time moving away from that.
And I mean, I think for young people, they'll question who they are, and it will take them a while to land on what feels like a confirmation for them. And I think we all deserve support as we go through that process and wherever we land, you know, because as you said, we don't know the outcome of discrimination on a person. You know, we know that the statistics shows that it affects people's mental health. So we know that we need to do different. I have a question in the chat about the expectation for this training. So in terms of what we're hoping to achieve, we're hoping to achieve to refresh your knowledge on gender, because this training was specifically designed for people who would have done a gender session in the past. So to refresh your knowledge on gender and human rights, and also to give you the tools to mainstream gender and human rights into your advocacy plans or your projects or your interventions. That's the outcome that we're hoping for. I think what CVSS is probably hoping for is that you will apply this to the work that you are already doing in your communities, the work that you intend to do in your communities, so that your work can also contribute in depth towards us achieving gender equality.
And the change.
And the change, right? The change
gears.
Yes, the change gears. So we definitely want us to be thinking about advocacy, how we can apply this to our advocacy, and how that we can include gender equality into the advocacy work that we're doing. Because I think just as, you know, anything that happens has the potential to worsen gender equality, if we're strategic, the things that we are doing can also contribute to gender equality. I see someone is asking, can they get the presentation slides and the recording, please? The recording will be available?
Well, we have recorded the session, so persons send us an email at projects@cvssja. We will send notes or so
at cvssja
dot
org
dot com.
All right, so the session is recorded. And so if you want access, you can email that email that I put in the chat, projects@cvssja.com, to make the request. Specifically, Dr. Black had asked for it. All right, everyone. So I want to officially thank you for participating in the training, to my participants online as well as my participants in person. Thank you for, you know, your interest in doing this work, the work that you're already doing in the communities. As always, big up CVSS and the European Union for creating these spaces where we can share knowledge in this way and get a little certification forward with seeing that nice. I'm now going to turn over to Anne-Marie to do the official wrap up. Please remember to do both the pre and the post so you can get the certificate. Take things seriously, people. And if you know anybody who you think might benefit from a session like this, let them know, because we have we have one or two left, right? Thank you. Take my number and call me.
We're at Spring Village in training center. We have a clinic, we have
Okay, but let me wrap up and then we have to
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. Carla, thank you so much. I'm sure the participants would have learned quite a bit, or more than quite a bit. Certainly those participants in-house are expressing that they have learned quite a bit. So that ends our meeting or session for today. Of course, if you have any questions, you may send those to projects@cvssja.org, and those will be sent on to Carlo. Or if you have any questions regarding the evaluation exercise, you can also send those questions to projects, and we will share with Zara Miller